On Wednesday, Vice President J.D. Vance visited Ole Miss as part of the Turning Point USA tour. Thousands of attendees waited in line for hours in the rain to get inside. Now, it marks the first stop on the tour since Charlie Kirk was shot and killed while speaking to students on a previous tour stop in Utah. Vance was joined at the event by Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, who is now the CEO of Turning Point USA. Vance took questions from students, some who agreed with him and some who didn't. He also discussed immigration reform, saying he believes there are too many immigrants in the U.S. Now, one person who traveled from Memphis asked the vice president about the Memphis Safe Task Force. Here's what he said.
What we're focused on is violent crime and people who have violated, the bodily autonomy of another human people. A person who has committed an act of violence against one of their fellow citizens, we're going to clean up the streets, get those people off the streets, and make America safe for the American citizens again.
Now, you heard the vice president say there that the main targets of the task force are violent criminals. However, some activists say the reach of the task force is extending beyond that. On Tuesday night, a volunteer with the group V901 witnessed an arrest involving federal agents and ICE in Orange Mound. That volunteer took out their phone and started recording and was reportedly asked by agents to move across the street if they wanted to record. Carlos Ochoa with V901 says the volunteer complied and moved, but was still tackled to the ground and violently arrested. They were later charged with resisting official detention. Ochoa says the group has several trained volunteers who monitor and record immigration agents across the city.
So that people can see the horrors, the terror that these people are inflicting on our communities. This is something that's happening in Chicago with the Midway Blitz, and if you're following the news in Chicago, you know that the ICE officials there, Homeland Security, they are not wearing their body cameras as instructed by a judge.
There is currently no update on whether or not the volunteer is still in custody. I want to open up to discussion now. So, Luke, I want to start off with you. Going back to the Ole Miss visit, what did you think of it?
As a Republican and somebody who's conservative and was really devastated by Charlie Kirk's assassination, it is really encouraging to me to see how much interest now there is with Turning Point, to have a lot of young college students wanting to have debate, wanting to have civics conversations, talk about the issues. And it was also remarkable to me that we had the Vice President of the United States for an hour take unscripted questions. He is hugely popular. The crowd there were about 10,000 students in the room, began shouting 48, 48, right, implying that he's their pick to take over after Trump. And I think it's encouraging to see. We need more of that healthy debate and dialogue on our college campuses, and I applaud Ole Miss for facilitating it.
What did you have to say about his response to the task force?
Look, I think he's spot on. I think, and I've said this on the show before, we are returning our streets of Memphis to the law-abiding. We are taking them from the criminal, the routine criminal that has had power for too long here. We are arresting them. We are putting them behind bars where they belong and returning the streets to the law-abiding. I will take issue with one thing he said. I get frustrated with this obsession with just talking about violent crime. Yes, violent crime is a big issue, but that is not the only issue. People are really tired of having their windows broken out when they go downtown. Before the task force got here, when they were going downtown and they would go out to eat, they would go to a Grizzlies game, and their car was vandalized. That's not technically a violent crime, but it's those routine crimes. And I think you've got to start just prioritizing law and order of all crimes. Start with the small things. Littering has a big impact on our community and how people feel about law and order. And let's, yes, focus all the way up to those serious violent crimes.
Yes, you are right. I'm happy you touched on that. But when we talk about the small things, I mean, there's been reports of people that had, had their bright lights on getting pulled over, and that's raising concerns about racial profiling, of course, and who's being targeted for these small acts that then lead to arrests. Otis, so when he says the focus is on violent criminals, and reports are showing that that's not exactly accurate, are government officials and task force leaders being transparent about the nature of these arrests?
Not nearly transparent enough. And of course, everybody wants to see a reduction in violent crime. I do. But we are not getting enough information about who they're arresting. We do know that they are arresting people who are just there monitoring the situation. We saw that with the V901, and we don't get any kind of information about that. There was a shooting just on Friday, and of course maybe some more facts will come out on that. They're not saying who was involved in that. I just think that while the public has been sort of fixated on the National Guard in town and the National Guard, that's not the issue here. The issue here is, in my view, is a little bit of over-policing by the task force going after people who are not, you don't have to throw everybody in jail for minor violations of the law.
I don't know that there's any evidence that that's
That is a
happening.
lot of evidence of that.
We have
going
people
on.
at 201 Poplar who are being arrested for what?
We have a lot of evidence here, especially when we talk about the immigration part of this, that people are being hauled away for those administrative violations, and they're not involved in any kind of violent crime. And now you've got parents scared to take their kids to school. You've got the school board trying to figure out how to keep people safe. This is just overreach in my view, and no, we're not getting the transparency we need.
So Scott, let me ask you, can both be true? Can the task force be fighting crime, but also marginalized communities fear their rights are being infringed upon and being targeted?
Well, obviously, I think that's what is going on. I think the task force could maybe be a little more transparent, but I agree with Luke. It's called the broken window theory, and you fix the little things to get to the bigger things, and cleaning up the community and enforcing minor, we talked about Wanda Halbert, but reports have come out from the clerk's office that expired tags have been renewed now, and they're getting renewed. So people are realizing, hey, there's someone out there that's going to hold us accountable to, what's going on. And like I said, if you are a law-abiding citizen, you should about.
I disagree with that completely, because there are law-abiding citizens monitoring what's going on, and one of those law-abiding citizens was hauled away to jail.
But we don't know why they were hauled away. The report said she was asked to, or she or he, I don't know, was asked to move across the street. The proponent, the 901, said she moved across the street and then was violently tackled, but we don't know that.
Well, then have the people involved, the task force, come out and be more transparent. That goes back to your original question. Okay. We're not getting enough transparency here.
All right, on that note, we do have to end. Thank you all for being here. Great discussion as always. Thank you for watching. We hope you'll join us next week for ABC24 This Week.